No. Okay, Noel, lead your meeting.
Awesome.
Righto.
All right. So, yeah, I had a few things on the agenda that we were going to go over tonight, but I got Corona last week and haven't really had a chance to do all the stuff that I had hoped to do. So tonight we're really going to focus on basically talking about the access provisions. That I think we started a conversation about this our last meeting, and we've made a little bit of progress. Kim has emailed around a draft, and I don't know, Kim, do you have hard copies available for whoever's at the town office?
Yeah, there's no one here. It's just me and Katrina.
Just you and Chris. Well,
Huh?
all right.
No. Yes.
So let's see, I have it and I can pull it up. And as we're sort of getting started with this, I think the thinking is currently there's a special town meeting that's at least tentatively planned for March 8th. And this may be one of those items that we want to get on the March 8th special town meeting, which means the selectmen are going to have their final public hearing on February 7th. And we would be on the agenda for the planning board December 8th to go over any sort of land use stuff, which is, I think we're going to have stuff on that. We should do a public hearing for planning for ordinance tweaks on December 8th anyway. And even if we don't go for the special town meeting, we can use that as an opportunity to kind of get a little bit ahead of where we need to be for some of the things that we're going to be working on. So that makes sense. March 8th, everybody all right with that? At least shooting for that. And I think what we've talked about trying to do is picking up the one or two things that got left off from the annual town meeting, and then this road access change that we're making to the land use ordinances. To me, those would be the kind of two things that we would, two or three things that we would be really working on for a special town meeting. But the annual town meeting is only a couple months later, so it's not a huge deal. Thoughts, comments? Good. All right. Okay. So hopefully everybody can see this. Everybody see that? 6P thoughts? All right. So what we've talked about is, again, the situation is there are certain existing lots in the town that are because of the way the ordinance is written, they're existing and they're either accessed by a substandard road or a substandard driveway, and you can't issue a building permit for that because of the way that the ordinance is currently written. And we're trying to resolve that. This seems like a common problem that we've had over the past several years, and we tried to tweak it a while back, and the attorneys made us take out some language that Kim and I thought probably would have fixed it, and put in this provision that we currently have in the ordinance, which is that if you have a new lot and you want to create it that's on a road that's substandard, you can go to the planning board, and I think it's section 611, which allows the planning board to issue a waiver with a set of standards that the applicant has to meet. Really doesn't solve the whole problem. So what we're trying to do with this provision is think about a solution for lots that are in existence prior to June of 2015 and lots that are new, created either on or after June of 2015. And that date basically corresponds to when we had made some changes to try to address it anyway. So the first one, 6B11.2.1 actually deals with the lots that are created on or after the June timeframe. And this change basically allows an applicant to, go through the process. We need to make some tweaks to this one too, because I think we need to reference 6B11 when it comes to roads. But, of primarily of importance is if you are on a driveway, a pre-existing primary access drive serving up to 2 lots, that don't need to meet the requirements of 6B6, which is the, the driveway provision in this land use ordinance. And then the next one, and then we also have, the principal policy question about all lots must maintain safe access for fire, police, and emergency vehicles. And then the next one is the one that deals with lots created before June of 2015. And then this one requires them to have private road and driveway access. And it doesn't need to meet either the road or the driveway requirements, but still needs to maintain safe access for fire, police, and emergency vehicles. So principally, there's a break where there are some lots that are created before, which theoretically would have met standards or were created because they met standards either 20 years ago or before 2015. And then there's a break if you're creating a new lot after that date, it has to meet a certain set of standards. And then we are trying to make some tweaks to this that I think number 2, could be a little bit overburdensome to the fire chief. So we're trying to figure out how to maintain the safe access for fire, police, and emergency vehicles without having the fire chief have to make a determination every single time. That's what we're discussing with the lawyers right now. So Kim, you might be able to explain that a little bit better. That's sort of, call that COVID fog description, but.
Yeah, no, as Noel described, the way the language is written now, the lots that predate the ordinance, that were either lawful, pre-existing grandfather, non-conforming lots of record. The intent when we added this language in the 2015 land use zoning ordinance was not to require pre-existing lawful non-conforming lots of record to have to bring their road up to the street design and construction standards under the subdivision ordinance in order to receive a permit through the town. And it's the same with the driveway. You shouldn't have to upgrade your driveway to meet the current zoning under 6B6 to get a permit. And so what we were doing was we were trying to address lawful non-conforming lots and or lots that predated the adoption of this when they were conforming on a private road with the minimum width of the lot on the private road. They would not have had to upgrade the road in any way at that point because they had the required minimum width of lot on the road. So by putting this date in there, it ideally says anybody that predated the adoption of the access under 6B11(2), as long as as long as they maintain their existing road and or driveway, so that the fire department and emergency vehicles and police could get up it. And we don't know, that may be something that, well, let me back up, that they don't have to upgrade the road. Now, I have sent an email this afternoon to the attorneys kind of modifying what we received, which is before you. That may be, excuse me, that maybe when a lot adds a second dwelling on their property, that I would, either me or the fire department would go out and take a look at the driveway or the road to make sure that it's safe for access for fire and police and emergency vehicles. But I don't feel if somebody wants to apply for a shed or a garage or a guest house, that they would have to, I would have to do an inspection, or the fire chief, to say, before I can issue the permit, to make sure that the existing driveway or existing private road is compliant with maintaining the safe access, that it shouldn't hold up a permit for that when it's accessory, not principal structures. But with new lots, it has to be looked at that by adding another lot onto an existing private road, it has to be looked at and determined whether it can be upgraded to meet the street design and construction standards under the subdivision ordinance, because now you're adding another lot, you're adding more traffic to the private road. The availability of going before the planning board to ask for a waiver is still gonna be in there. We do need to reference that in that section, so, because nobody knows to go to section 6.1.1 under the subdivision ordinance, except for me, because it's not in any of this language. So that kind of is ideally it. I don't know if I made it muddier or clearer, or does it make sense?
How about just to ask the principal question, which is, does the concept of what we're trying to do make sense to everybody? Not necessarily the details of how we're doing it.
Yeah. Fine with me.
Okay, and I think, the
Yeah.
policy decision for the town really is, you want to make sure, that all lots have some means of access from a public way that is safe for emergency vehicles to get to. And then that's the larger question. And then the two other questions are, okay, how are we going to regulate lots that are existing before a certain time? Because lot standards changed over time. And there's just a lot of examples in Mount Desert where their existing lots are accessed by things that are not up to current standards. And then I think a follow-up question for the long term is, like, are the current standards for roads in particular sufficient or overly sufficient? We could get into that at some point, but that's a whole question. That's a whole thing that we don't need to deal with today. So I think primarily that's like this one, and the one that we had to skip over at town meeting would be the ones that we're going to try to deal with first. And if it makes sense to put them at a special town meeting, we can do that if everybody agrees. And if it doesn't, there's no harm in doing a public hearing in December, because that'll get us a little farther ahead on what we need to do for the regular town meeting anyway, because we'd still be planning public meetings for regular town meeting in January and February. So we're not that much farther ahead. I penciled that schedule out today.
Are we planning to meet in November?
I think we should. I would like to circle back on the whole objective that the Board of Selectmen asked us to start looking into with regard to the housing and that question. And I would love to have gotten into that tonight. I just was out most of last week, so I didn't have a chance to get to it enough to hand it off to anybody ahead of time. So, but we can touch it real quick, just as a matter of how we approach the question. I just want to make sure this approach makes sense to everybody. And the question that the board asked, the issue of weekly rentals is starting to come up in Mount Desert. And I think the way that I'd like to try to handle it is basically, let's understand what the data says. so we can have a common set of background, and then maybe start to identify, okay, what is the challenge? What are the issues in Mount Desert that we're really trying to deal with? And then how can the town of Mount Desert help address those issues? I mean, if, use affordability as an example, there's only so many, there are certain things that the town can do to help with affordability. And then there are certain things that it's a very comprehensive problem, and should be interesting. But what I'm really like to do is like have a thoughtful conversation about it and not a reactive conversation about it.
Yeah, I mean, has it been discussed again at any Board of Selectmen meeting as far as what the expectation is, or what they're looking for, the Board of Selectmen?
No, I think Derlin would have to fill me in. I have only been to that one meeting, and that's pretty much what I'm telling you is what I told them we would do.
Yeah, I think what they're looking for is to see if there was anything that they could draw up to start with. I guess they want an assessment of the problem, and then whether the problem is of that, if there's a legislative remedy for it. So I think they're looking for some more guidance in that regard.
Yep. So in order to do that, I think we need to first understand what the data says, and then identify what the issues are and what solutions might be to address those issues.
Do
Like
we have any, oh, sorry.
Can you take down your shared screen so we can see everybody?
Yep, sorry.
That's
You guys
okay.
want to keep reading that?
No, I'm good.
Stephanie?
Do we have a problem yet in the town of Mount? I know Bar Harbor is whatever's going on over there, but do we have a big problem yet in Northeast, or Mount Desert, or is it just starting to creep in? I haven't heard anything as far as the town of Mount Desert goes, as far as weekly rentals or whatever.
Well, I think that's the question that we're going to try to answer, Stephanie, without trying to dodge your question too hard. But I mean, he's going to have a slightly different opinion on whether or not there is a problem and what the cause of the problem is. I think what would be really interesting is to have a discussion as a group. I mean, can we agree on whether or not we agree on what the problem is, and try to put that into words. And then what is the cause of that particular problem that might be multiple things, so not to get too far ahead of it, but if we can all agree that, housing affordability in Mount Desert is a problem or a particular, group, income range, or then that's a start. And then contribute to that problem is probably very things. And how to deal with that, I don't know.
And maybe someone that, oops, sorry, no, go.
Well, I'm just saying, I think the weekly rental issue is such an emotional topic. We need to come from a really thoughtful perspective.
And maybe a real estate person, Katrina, or someone can answer, do we have many people buying up property just to rent it in Northeast or Mount Desert yet? I know we have property being bought up, say expanding families, summer resident, buying some houses for families that are expanding, but do we have a problem at all yet with anyone coming in just buying property to just turn over and rent for weekly rentals, not year round? Does anyone know, or?
That's all we're going to try to get, Stephanie.
Okay.
There's several houses in Somerville that flip over every week.
Okay.
I think, again, this is where we're going to have to be really careful, because you're all coming at so many different perspectives. Let's try to, let's take the time to understand and gather. Let's agree on identifying a problem, if there is one, and what that problem is. And then what's the cause of the problem that we're trying to, those are going to be things that we're going to have to discuss. And then there's multiple ways to address particular problems.
Okay.
I'm not trying to dodge it. You're asking questions that are going to start to.
Okay. Well, that's, yes. Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I think we have to have some common data points.
I don't have any problem with thinking of it proactively as a problem that will probably get worse before it got better, and not, and if we dealt with it now, when it came in, people buying properties would know that that couldn't happen.
Mhm. Mhm. Yep. Mhm.
Any other thoughts?
I think it's too bad to refer to it before we've done any research as a problem. I
So,
think referring to it as a concern
Mhm.
or an issue gives it a different feeling going forward, because if you refer to something as a problem, then it gives it a whole different feeling going forward.
well, yes, that's Katrina. I'll just throw my cards on the table here. I would like, can we all agree that affordability is a problem in the town of Mount Desert? We can define who affordability is a problem for, but we'll just, for this conversation, we could just call it workforce.
Mhm.
So then if we can agree to that, then I think I would build on what you were saying, Katrina, which is one of the contributing factors to that might be weekly rentals. One of them might be, lack of supply or just the market itself. There's all kinds of contributing factors to that problem. And then we have to think about, okay, how do we want to solve that problem and identify some of the contributing ways that we might be able to either be proactive about it so it doesn't become worse, Barry was mentioning, or use those contributing factors particularly as benefits to help solve the problem. So there's a lot of different ways to think about it. I just want to think about it, thoughtfully. Another problem might be, or question, is there a problem with neighborhoods being, I can't think of a good term. Is there a neighborhood problem in the town of Desert? And that is a question. I don't know the answer to it yet, but those are all kinds of things that, okay, so if there is, what are the contributing factors to that? Is it lack of year-round population? Is it da-da-da? They're all kind of related. It's just a matter of,
Yeah, I guess that's what I was I didn't want to start something. And if word got out, all of a sudden, we're discussing this, and like you said, we don't want it to become reactive when something may not even be happening.
right.
Yeah.
Well, what I'm trying to avoid, Stephanie, is already going to be, it'll be emotional if you use the weekly rental. We would have a huge discussion about that.
Yes.
We're going to deal with that right now, and we wouldn't be necessarily productive. That doesn't mean that we're not going to talk about weekly rentals. It just, like, I think we need to agree. We need to have a consensus about what it is that we're actually trying to achieve, and then tools, what's contributing to it, and then what tools can we use to try to achieve whatever goal. So it's more, I'm trying to, as much as possible, like, think about it logically and take some emotion out of the conversation. I'll do my best. It's not going to be easy, but yeah, I think that's, I think there's a lot we can learn from what Bar Harbor's going through. And I think there's a lot of tools that are already, a lot of things that are already happening island-wide or even in your own community. That would be really helpful to think about. So that's where we are. I would love to dive in tonight. I really didn't have enough time. It is a conversation that needs full preparation. And maybe I'm being overly dramatic about it, but I just think it's nice to take the time that we need.
What about the subdivision ordinance?
That is, I have to look at that, Kim. I haven't looked at that for a little bit. We need to just tackle that. That's what I got.
Okay. So did we decide when we're meeting next?
Yeah, it's November 16th. That's the third
Yep.
Tuesday, of November.
Got it.
No,
Yes.
sorry, I'm late. I had, I had all kinds of trouble getting signed in. I had to actually go back and re-sign into my, make up a Zoom account and everything else. So sorry, I'm late.
That's okay. Thanks, Dave.
What a mess.
We just went over a few things, high level stuff. You should have a copy of the current version of the access provisions that we're thinking about. If you have any thoughts, you can always reach out to me or Kim. Tuesday, March 8th, there may be a special town meeting, which we're shooting for potentially. And December 8th, planning board public hearing for some land use stuff, maybe one or two items for now. That's it. Any questions, thoughts? All right,
Can I just say that you guys need to come down to the town office and sign the remote policy that you guys adopted on the 24th of August?
Can we do it remotely?
I don't think so. Darling, can they or no?
I was just
No.
kidding.
What?
I was kidding.
No.
Jerry's just giving you a hard time, Kim.
What?
Jerry's
Oh.
just giving you a hard time.
Yeah. So because we need to have this on file. So it'll be in the front clerk's area for you to come down and sign it. I got Katrina so far.
Awesome.
Thank you. We haven't met since August, so so the document is, here to be signed.
Great.
Thank you.
All set?
Anybody got anything else?
All righty. Thank you.
Feel better. Thanks, Noel.
See ya.
Night.